Wait, we need to pose for a face.
Oh, okay, wait. Are we talking about the teen drama? Because it should be like a dramatic face or like a. Like. Like, really? Really?
Love it. Okay.
Bitch, hey, welcome to Two Human Hearts.
Oh yeah, we need to introduce.
Yeah, we're supposed to do like introductions and stuff, remember?
Welcome to Two Human Hearts, a podcast of illuminating discussions, expert insights, and stories of resilience.
Find a cozy spot and come along with us as we dive into honest conversations from our two human hearts to yours.
Alice is a
like a child. Hi, mommy.
This is Alice. She is an incredible fiber artist and creator of some really great fiber art projects. Have you heard it related to fiber arts? Okay, anyway, and she's one of the funniest people I know and makes me giggle a lot. Also a former professor of human development and family. Is that how we say
family?
Wow, I'm screwing this up. And
yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that introduction.
For my brain.
We'll fix it in post.
That's wow, we're gonna have a lot of post fix here. That's okay.
It's okay. Hi, True. It's funny that you said I'm the fiber artist when you're the one wearing a crochet vest that you actually made.
You inspired me.
It looks beautiful. So here's True, also a very skilled fiber artist who wears her own stuff. I'm not. This is from Walmart. I'm cheap.
Well, I'm also cheap. This shirt is thrifted, but
also, True is very smart and thrifty.
And what?
Thrifty? Frugal?
Smart, thrifty.
Also, True is a professional therapist, counselor, licensed social worker. All of those things together rolled into one degree. And is wonderful, works mainly with families and adolescents and specializes in ADHD. So we're here to talk about, what are we talking about? When life is just the worst. When teens think life is over. But here we are. We're going to talk about it. And
yeah.
True.
Yeah.
You and I both have teenagers. We're going to try real hard not to mention anything specific. Yeah. So speaking in generalities, what are some things that you think teenagers can exaggerate?
I think it'd be shorter.
Do you have days?
What they don't exaggerate.
That would be a shorter list.
And to be honest, I don't really know what we'd put in there. So, teenagers live in the black and white. I mean, kids do live in the black and white. Mm-hmm. Teenagers especially. Mm-hmm. I think what's so confusing for parents often is that through, puberty through teenage years, it just feels like the contrast keeps getting turned up. And like, when is it ever going to come down? And even though logically I have degrees in this and a lot of experience in this in my professional life and know it's not the same, I know it does come back down. As a parent, for sure, have had moments of like, oh my gosh, if I don't bring them down and anchor them somewhere, are they going to float away into the drama? Like, am I just going to watch them be like, well, there they go. They're never coming back now. And this is just who they are. Like, it really just starts to worry me sometimes. And then I'm like, I don't know, like I have to...
or to use the analogy that we used in another video, watching them on a canoe floating away on a lake full of fog.
Oh, see, I thought we were
confidently paddling
together, and they were.
Well, we were in the previous analogy, but now the way you're saying this kind of makes me think: what if like we're in separate canoes and we're trying to stay together, and they're like, "I got this,"
and you're like.
Could be both, right? Could
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Actually, I have. I'm like doing this thing. I actually have a
If
great.
we do that, if we like, then like pause a little after, because then it'll like
We
make the
have
little
time.
that
Good
we can
idea.
edit it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
The amount of editing to this is going to take us a year. Okay, so I actually have a great story with that. So that I will talk about my child, but it's really not about their experience as much as it is mine. So teenager, my teenager, my teenager and I went to float a little river. It's actually like a small river through like um, the greater Denver area, and not really, and for the most part, really chill. Not, but there was a few rapids in there. There's like a few rapid moments with bigger rocks, and we had just gotten these cheap inner tubes, like at the end of the season, just trying to have some end of summer fun before we went back to school. And there was this moment where we were about to go down a rapid and we're looking. We had walked all along the river just to get a preview of what was happening. But this one in particular, the way that we were kind of turned, I was seeing how they were turning and I was turning, and I was thinking, this is going to work so much better if we're connected, but I couldn't like connect to them fast enough. Or maybe I had gone down first and looked back, something where I was right next to them, and as a parent had this like freak out of like, I have to, and they ended up flipping over. And instead
Oh.
of just kind of allowing them to flip over and bob back up, my brain was trying to save them from falling into the water. I was literally like reaching over, like yanking anything I could grab, like their thigh, their whatever, like just trying to get them to stay up so their head was above water. That's what my survival brain was thinking was the most important thing at the time. And it ended up being fine regardless. It's not deep enough. Like it's a little deeper than it, but they can swim. Like it wasn't actually like drowning was an option, and it wasn't even like hitting their head was an option really in this particular scenario. But my brain was so consumed with the immediate threat that they were going to flip over that I was so focused on trying to make sure they didn't go through that I think all I did was delay their ability to then go through it and then come back up, if that makes any sense. And
Mm-hmm.
I like just thinking about it now, like what an incredible analogy for parenting a teenager, because I was so consumed with the immediate threat of their struggle that I wasn't really seeing the bigger picture, that the only way out was through, really. Like for them to just be able to finally like dunk into, and so they could bob back up, and really kind of messing with the momentum, because with that momentum they could push off the bottom sooner. Like all of that was going to happen. I don't know if this makes sense to anybody, but I think so. I think it makes sense. And I was just truly like checking in with my body as they were starting to bob back up. I was then able to check in with my body, and I felt my eyes were wide. I was like gripping for them. I
Oh
was
yeah.
so worried about them in this moment. And granted, there's certain injuries or like what, I was just so concerned with all these little things and just trying to save them so desperately. And in the end, not only did they not actually need me to save them, uh, I think in trying to save them so desperately, I kept them from building the skill they needed, like having that opportunity to build the skill, because they didn't actually go through it all on their own. I was there trying to save them from it. And also they bobbed up, and I was so worried they were going to be like, like they're like 5 years old. And actually they were just like, whoa, that was crazy. Like everything was fine. Like, and then I'm like, do you want to leave? And they're like, no, why would I leave? Let's keep going. Like, that was fun. Like, oh, right, right. Like, right.
Yeah.
I think what's partly so confusing is teenagers so often act like children. We were just talking about how in the developmental space, in the developmental picture purview, they model toddlers so closely. And so there's
Mm-hmm.
really like this childlikeness to it. And there's even moments where you find them craving and wanting and reaching for things they did when they were young, like a
Yeah.
stuffy, or they want to watch a young kid movie or whatever. Or you're thinking that if they were young, we would just color in this moment, and that's kind of what they want. And but on the flip side, there's this other extreme where that's not, even though we can support them in that way, that's not actually what they're, it's almost like they're revisiting it as a review, but they're not really they're not helpless in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd love to
Yeah.
hear your, like, when you teach, I don't know if it's when you teach what would teach one or the other, but when you would teach about toddler years or teenage years, would you talk about the comparison? Because I feel like I
Oh
kind of
yeah.
never talk about one without the other when I'm talking to parents about this.
Yeah, for sure. I always have said, and I don't know where I heard this or if I'm just really smart and came up with it myself.
Let's go with number
I
two.
don't know. But I always said, like, the 2-year-olds have similar traits to teenagers, but when you get to 3, you have 3-nagers. That's what I call them.
Yeah.
3-nagers, for sure, because the attitude is there, the why, the I mean, there's just so many things that are like, why are you a teenager in a 3-year-old's body? And I don't think every parent recognizes that off the bat, especially if they have not really interacted with teenagers since they were one. But if you
Sure.
have interacted with teenagers at all, and then you interact with a 3-year-old routinely, flags start going on. Like, what is happening right now? there's drama. There is, I want to wear it this way, not that way. There's all kinds of things that 3-year-olds do that are teenager things. And then we go on repeat again in the teenage years. And there are emotions with no explanation. And there are hormone changes. And we actually found out, and this is fairly recent research, they found out that beginning around 3, which it like explains a lot, or beginning around 3, girls especially, but boys too, go through hormonal changes like on a monthly cycle, which accounts for some of those emotional like mood swings. And then you also have things like, I don't know if there's evidence for this particularly, but anecdotally as a parent, I noticed right before my kids had a growth spurt, boy, were they tired and grumpy and very emotional and really irritable,
Yeah.
short tempered with me. And then they would have a growth spurt and suddenly they'd be fine and sunshine again, and most of the time. So there's that. And I've noticed with my teenagers, there is that similar kind of, it comes on a cycle to some degree, but it's also very constant. And the reason for that is the changes in the brain that are happening during adolescence, which are specific to, certain parts of the brain that regulate emotion. And so we have parts of the brain that are mature. I think we've talked about this on the podcast before, but the parts of the brain that center around emotion and processing emotion, complex emotions, those are like finalizing in development around adolescence. And then we have the prefrontal cortex, which regulates decision making and problem solving, and it's underdeveloped compared to the other part of the brain, which is why you find a lot of teenagers making risky decisions that sometimes put them in danger and others in danger. And not always, and not all teenagers, obviously, but you do have some of that going on. And it's because they want to feel good. They want to have, it's about feelings. I'm going to do this thing because that will feel exciting. And then thinking about, oh, but what are the long-term effects if I do this or if something goes wrong? And that part of the brain is not strong enough to override this desire to feel something exciting or something good. And so the decision is made and it's a poor decision. And so I think when we're thinking about our teenagers, we have to consider the maturity and the ability of their brain to think through something logically before making an emotional decision, because that's something that they will struggle with.
Yeah.
Just their brain literally cannot do it the way that an adult can do it, but they are looking more like an adult, they're acting more like an adult, they
Yeah.
want to be more like an adult,
Yeah. They
and
sure
so
want to
it's like
be.
mixed
Yeah.
signals.
They sure want
Yeah,
to be regarded as an adult,
for
right? They
sure
want
they
the
want
privileges of adulthood, and we're like,
they do, they want the autonomy, they want the
mm.
independence, and yet as parents we have to still regulate that to a certain degree, to be
Yeah,
like, well, you still need some monitoring because your brain literally is not able to do make the best decisions for you at this time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think typically when I mean, broadly, when I'm talking to parents of, man, should I use my name? When I'm talking to parents of toddlers and they're trying to make sense of parts that don't really make sense, like some things are really classic toddler, um, or especially that 4-year-old age. I mean, you might call it teenagers. I call it the fuck you fours. Okay, those fours. I'm pretty quick. Like 4 is the first time my kid made me cry with their words. They were so mean in this one moment, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Whoa!" And of
Yeah.
course, later, they felt awful. Like we were just in a standoff about something, but they were able to use their words in such a way they probably didn't even realize how they used them. But I was like, "Okay," and I went and
Mm-hmm.
climbed into my bed and crawled under my covers and cried, and they came
Yeah.
downstairs and crawled under there and we cried together. So that was a beautiful moment. But at first, anyway, so when they're talking about toddler years and they're struggling to understand something, it's the part that I'm like, okay, let's pretend like they're a teenager in this moment. What makes sense? And all that's like the perspective. And with teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
when they're struggling to make sense of something, I'm like, let's look it through the lens of a toddler. Like it's because it's really those moments, and it really is.
Mm-hmm.
I, I mean, it really is that fuck you tuck me in. Like I'm letting those fly today, but it really is that I want to. I both want to believe that I can be independent of you, and I need to know that it will be my choice, not yours. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
so big.
Yeah.
That's so big for them. And I
Yeah.
need to know that I have the space and support and autonomy to make that choice. Because if it ever feels like you're making it for me, aka you're on the phone, aka you have literally anything better to do than stare at your child and pay attention to them, it feels like I'm not making that choice.
Mama, mama, look at me. Jump off the couch.
And you're like,
Wow. You
wow,
you're an acrobat. You really nailed that. The landing, 10 out of 10.
nailed it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, and basically, that's also partly what the drama is, right? Can you
Mm-hmm.
imagine kids or teenagers, let's say, if we're talking about teenagers really, they hear us talking about things in these big ways, like an episode of a reality show, and they're trying to make sense of what things are big newsworthy. And so if they're
Mm-hmm.
basing it off of their feelings, nearly any micro interaction is big newsworthy. And they
Yeah.
don't really know what the difference is between that and something we said that was like,
Yeah.
oh, by the way, like, especially coming from the neurodivergent perspective and struggles with executive functioning, I didn't know the difference. All I knew is that one sounded bigger. So if I tell the story in a big way, then maybe it's important. And teenagers just, I think a typical teenager, a common experience in like a public high school, and I'm not saying public high schools are the worst. Like there are a lot of our experiences. I'll just speak for my experience and my own kids' experience. At that age and in the situations they tend to be in, you can just feel so lost in the crowd that
Mm-hmm.
just knowing that the micro interactions that happen to you are meaningful and important is helpful. And I feel like that's also partly why they just want to tell the story of it over and over, because they just want to know that their experience means something, even if it was an everyday interaction in a classroom where someone said something that was some off comment, but that felt passive
Mm-hmm.
aggressive.
Yeah.
It's valid.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, so I'm just thinking about, you know, more comparisons between like a 3 or 4 year old and like teenagers. And one of the things that like a theme is independence across both of those
Right.
age groups as well. So like 3 and 4 year olds, I do it myself. I want to do it myself. I want to pick my own clothes. I want to put on my own shoes. And the shoes are on the wrong feet, and they picked the wrong socks, and they're wearing plaid and stripes. And it's a chaotic outfit, but this is what was chosen, and we're going to go out the door because as a parent, I always say pick your battles. And if the battle is we've got to get out the door because we have an appointment, then I can't really choose the battle of you can't wear plaids and stripes right now. that's a
Yeah.
lesser that's a lesser battle. So I will let that go so that we can get out the door. Right?
Yeah.
So with a 3 and 4 year old, it's about I want to choose my own things. I want to do it my own way. And with teenagers, there is that. I want to do it, and they're not saying to you, I want to do it myself. They're just doing it themselves. And they're taking a bit of risk, a safe amount of risk, and figuring things out themselves. And then they come back to you though. And this is where it's like, kind of a full circle moment where, okay, I've done this thing by myself and it didn't quite work out. I need mom. I need mom. I got to know, like, what did I
Yeah.
do wrong? How could I do this better? And then, at least my kids, they circle back for affection too. It's like, I want to be, grown up. I'm going to do my own thing. I've got my license. I'm going to go and drive to my girlfriend's house and spend time with her. And then I want to come home and I want to talk to my mom. And I'm going to share with my mom things that we talked about, me and my girlfriend. And I want to give my mom a hug. And so there are times in that teenage year too where it kind of harkens back to those 3 and 4 year old times where they need their parent. They're
Yeah.
seeking closeness and affection.
Yeah.
And gosh, some of those times it's like I'm really annoyed at you right now. I do not want to cuddle, but that little person needs some cuddles. And sometimes that bigger person, your teenager,
Yeah.
needs some cuddles too. And maybe you're still maybe annoyed. Maybe something happened and you are annoyed. Um, and it requires, gosh, parenting requires a lot of us. It requires a lot,
Yeah.
not just in like things are difficult to do, but also in like sometimes we're dealing with our own stuff.
Sometimes. Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
I wrote this down in our last conversation because I thought it was like poetic or whatever. It's like sometimes we walk around eggshells in relationships. And as a parent, I feel like often I walk on eggshells around my childhood trauma. That
Mhm.
I can't let my trauma become my kids' future trauma, right?
Yeah.
Like if this situation is very triggering for me, but I have to hold it together because they need me right now.
Yeah.
And this is a moment where they need support, and this is a moment I did not get support maybe as a child. And so in this moment I will be the opposite of what I received,
Yeah.
even though this is really hard for me right now.
Yeah. It's a time
Oh,
where masking is really important. And it's okay to
yes.
ask for a break. Like there have definitely been times where I'm like, "Hey, I really want to be here for you in this moment." Because let's be honest, most of the time, especially with teenagers, it's like one of the most inopportune moments. And sometimes I really can't stick around. Like I really do have the thing that I will generally like if it's possible, I will be late to the thing in order to show my kid that it's important, especially
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it had more to do with the fact that my schedule was tight and not that they were just trying to bring something up with me right before I'm leaving. That's not really it. Like they just got home, but I need to leave, but they needed some time. I will let someone know I'm going to be late to something and I'll be 10, 15 minutes late for them to take that time.
Hmm.
And sometimes it really isn't possible right then. And I say, I really want to talk to you about this. What can I get you to help you feel supported for until I get back? And if they say, I don't know, then we just get their favorite things. Like for my kid when they were young, an ice pack solved everything. Whether they put it on the place of their body that hurt, or whether they put it on their face because they've been crying, or they put it on the back of their neck for regulation. If it's really cold outside, it was usually a heat pack. Same. That sensory
Hmm.
just feeling of like warmth and a hug. Got them all snuggled into a little place in their bed with like a movie they liked. Sometimes it was I was gonna be back in 30 minutes. I just had to go get this thing at the store. We weren't going to make dinner, whatever it is. Like that was also necessary. That was meeting our needs was going to include that. and there's a thing I needed to do. And,
Right.
or if we feel like, hey, I really want to be here for this moment and this feels important, I have to pee so bad. So I'm going to go meet my needs and I'm going to be right back
Mm-hmm.
with an empty bladder, some tissues, some water, and a snack because it
Mm-hmm.
feels like that's what's needed here. And more often than
Mm-hmm.
not, when your kids are breaking down, water, snack, and some sort of like sensory item is a godsend. And sometimes, maybe even a a little mood supplement. It's totally up to you. But like sometimes, and especially if I could tell, like, oh, we're in this, like they may not come back from this, and I really tried to make sure they knew, like, I'm not offering you this because you're a problem. I'm offering you this because it seems like a big part of this shadow has to do with something maybe this could support. And I know you have this thing later you want to go to. And if you still don't feel great later, that's fine. Here's a little something to maybe just like help boost that so you're not stuck in this whatever. And again, that's totally like personal choice. It's whatever the tools are, whatever the known tools are that help your child. It could be some type of tea they really like, and maybe it's not even about like there's a certain tea my kid likes that's not really for like all ailments, but they just that tea to them represents love, comfort, what they always tend to drink when they're not feeling like that's what it represents for them. So that even the taste to them is this sensory like trigger of like, oh, we are in safety, it's time to feel better, like I can feel better, whatever
Mm-hmm.
those things are. And you start to gauge your child and know like, oh, is this just like a thing they're upset about, or are we like in so yeah.
Yeah.
So great to model meeting your needs. So great to model again what I would want my kid to do if their friend was coming up to them and I have to tell you this thing right now. And then they talk for a second and they're like, I really want to be here for you. And in order to do that, well, I need to go meet my needs. I'm going to be right back. That is appropriate. That is healthy. That is kind. That is clear. That is all the
Mm-hmm.
things. So modeling that for your kids. And one of the things
Yeah.
you and I were talking about is like, how do we know when to validate and how do we know when to be like, okay, you're done? And the truth is,
Eat.
without giving like a lot of personal examples, it's tricky. It's tricky. And I think that we have our own capacity to your point of trying to, like keeping it to ourselves, trying to keep our own stuff together. And I don't always do it right. Taking the opportunities to model
Who
apologies,
does?
pondering, just remembering it's like any other relationship in some ways. It's like any other
Mm-hmm.
relationship where an interaction happens. It happened. We're not really sure in the moment if there was a winner or a loser or if we both lost for the day or the week. I don't really know, but you're going to have time to ponder that. And it's going to ponder in the back of your mind. Like it's going to sit there and
Mm-hmm.
simmer. And at the end of the day, so important to have a wraparound conversation, and it can be short. I will give one example. The other day, I was like, hey, we really need to talk about this. My teenager and I had an interaction. And later they were like, what do you mean? I don't remember that. So I heard been this thing that I have been like rolling around in my mind for their entire school day and after school activity. So a good like 10 hours. Like they come home and I'm all thinking, man, I really need to wrap around to that and let them know like, hey, it's not that I'm too busy for you. It's not that whatever. I really wasn't sure what you were saying, to be honest. I think I said something like, I was kind of lost in how to support you in that moment. I'm not confident my choice was the better I just want to make, and they were like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember that. That's how little it meant to them. If you would have taken our conversation in a script, it would not have seemed like a small thing. It would have seemed like the biggest thing ever. So wrapping back around, just be like, hey, well, I just want to make sure you know that I support you in that and that I love you and I'm here. I have more time and capacity now, whatever. And they were like, oh, I forgot what I was even saying. You're like, oh, okay. I'm
Mom,
glad
I
you
don't
feel
even
safe enough
remember
that
what
now
you're
it
talking
doesn't
about.
matter. It was
I don't
not
even
life changing.
remember.
Like
Yeah.
no core memory here. We're good. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like I can share just generically. I think certain personalities of teenagers maybe are more prone to the drama, to amplifying a problem. So maybe there's an argument with a friend, right? Or gosh, a lot of the times lately, it feels like arguments are starting up over something that somebody posted online. And the problem with that is you're missing context a lot of the time in these posts, right? Or like somebody just shares a post, you don't know why they've shared it. And maybe they didn't put any like, oh, I'm sharing this because blah, blah, blah. So you don't even know. But the
You don't even know.
interpretation of that share can be blown out of proportion. And you think, oh, this is about me. That's this thing that happened to me. And I think when something like that happens, something big in the world of a teenager, sometimes the reaction can be a really big reaction, and it becomes a global problem. Like, this is not a bad interaction I had with a friend. This is the world is falling apart. I have no friends. Nobody likes me. Everybody's disappointed in me. And it
Just
just
look where we
becomes
were.
this catastrophic problem, right? And now it's not even about that interaction that happened. Now it's like everything in my
Yeah.
life is going terrible. Is this how it's always going to be? And it's like, that's when, for me, I had to shut that down because
Yeah.
now we are spiraling, and that our mood is just going to tank if we
Yeah.
just continue on this train of thought of like everything is bad. No. So now we need a dose of reality. Let's wait a minute. It's not a bad life, it's a bad moment, right?
Yeah.
This moment happened today, and you're right, that was rough, that was bad, that felt really bad. I didn't like that. It felt yucky to me. And it doesn't feel good when a friend, hurts my feelings. All valid.
Yeah.
But does that mean that everything in life is now bad?
Yeah.
Realistically, no.
Well,
So,
you can't. Yeah, I think in that moment though, they can't often see it though. Sometimes they can. Sometimes when you go stop sign, is that really? They're like, okay, fine, you're right. But other times, I describe it like I describe it like I mean, what always comes to my mind is this this clip from Alice in Wonderland, kind of, but with a twist. So really, it's like imagine like there's like a small table with a puzzle on it, and the puzzle's not difficult. It's like a 25-piece puzzle, maybe a 100-piece puzzle, depending on the situation. The point
okay.
is the solution, all the pieces to the solution are there, and we can over time work this out and figure out what to do next, even if the picture ends up being a little different than what we imagined as the solution. There is always a way forward for you. Maybe not the relationship with that person, maybe not, like it might mean we need to leave the club, it might mean that, but
Mm-hmm.
until we work it through, we're not really going to make a decision that feels attuned to us. And when we are in dysregulation, it's like that we can't see the top of the table. We can't even see the puzzle. We've gotten
Okay,
smaller,
yeah.
or really probably the table got big because that was the problem. It was just like huge. And so until we've come down from dysregulation, we can't even access the puzzle to then begin getting there. So really the only thing to do is to find the drink me potion. Like, or
Yeah,
the
right.
whatever.
No, yeah,
The
to find
only
some
thing to do,
regulation.
yeah, is come down. So it's like I tend to word it, yeah, very similarly, like stop sign. That could be true. Or I think of you sort of maybe not.
Maybe not.
Regardless, because a lot of times in those moments, whether it's a teenager I'm working with or my own teenager, a lot of times in those, or even kids of any age, in those moments, if I say like that's probably not true, now all I'm doing, I mean, if we were to put it through a filter, I think this was an Inside Out too. There was this like filter that like made things sound different. I love that analogy where they think they're saying,
Yes.
"Man, I really need you," and instead it's like, "I can't believe you're leaving." Like, whatever it is. I
Yeah, yes. Yeah, yeah.
I what so if we say like that's probably not true, it's probably not that bad. They're hearing your emotions don't matter. I'm invalidating you.
Right.
That's not true. What you thought isn't true. They're feeling gaslit. They're feeling like their experience doesn't matter. So I'm just like, generally I'm with you. It works to be like, hey, I think this is a good moment. I'm gonna put a pause right here in my hearing this part. I'm gonna go grab some things to meet needs. And sometimes when they've gotten like kind of like they're like angry in the thing. They're not really angry at me, but they're angry in the thing. And you wouldn't believe what
Mm-hmm.
they and it's just, everything's like, and they're getting there. I'm like, you know what? I think this is a great time for a bath, for us some dinner or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to meet back up with you in 30 minutes. Let's see where we're at there. And if you still feel this way, I am on board. And sometimes they've been like, "Ugh," but you know what? They can roll their eyes when they walk up to the bath. That's fine with
Right.
me. They can even stomp up to the bath as long as they're being pretty respectful. Like if they're that mad. And then later they're usually like, "Hey, I'm really sorry I stomped to the bath." But for the most part, my relationship with my kid, they okay, but sometimes they
Mm-hmm.
weren't there and they're like, "What? It's not going to be solved." But I was like, "You know what? You could be right. I'm not saying the bath's going to solve everything. I'm saying I don't think we can really get to where we need to get to, and I don't want to make a decision that we later, whatever." So, and also I need to go make dinner or whatever it is, right? Like whatever it is.
Right.
So, and then without fail, when they come back, I don't think it was as big as I thought. Or sometimes they really do say, I think I've just been feeling this for so long now. I think it is time that I make a change in this friendship,
Yeah.
this situation I'm in this whatever. And I just think I haven't wanted to accept it and I'm mad at everybody else. But really, or maybe that's what I'm saying. It sounds like you're mad at everybody else, but really, like, what are you mad at you for? Because I feel
Yeah.
like that's often when we get stuck. We're actually mad at ourselves, even if what we're mad at ourselves for is the fact that we didn't leave, we didn't walk out, we didn't say
Yeah. Why
something.
didn't I notice before?
Yeah. So
Why did I
our
let it
kids.
get this bad?
Yeah, and sometimes it
Yeah.
is. Sometimes it is really that bad. And you know what? If it's really that bad, it's going to be that bad in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Because these are usually over things that don't need a decision in the next 30 minutes. They're just things we
Right.
need to figure out before tomorrow or before the end of the week or whatever.
Yeah. And to be fair, I just don't want people to think that as a parent, I would just immediately shut down my kid if they come in and like everything's terrible.
No.
There's an assessment of the mood that
Sure.
happens, and I would never, to any teenager, I would never shut down, their dramatics in that way. Like I might be thinking, "Yeah, boy, you're really like you're really feeling this over the top," but I would never shut that down without knowing, you know, what's the status of the anxiety about this situation. If we are in
Right.
panic mode 100%, I'm coming at it with empathy. I'm coming at it with let's meet our needs. Let's like we need to calm down before we can address
Yeah.
anything. And that there's literally science behind that
Yeah.
because our brain when we are in fight or flight mode, which is panic or anxiety mode, right? It cannot process logic. The part of our brain that processes logic and problem solving is effectively shut down by our adrenaline, by all of these hormones that are going through the cortisone, whatever, that we are having uh, this such a strong emotion. It
Yeah.
overrides everything else. So until we get those things to come down to a more neutral level, we're not going to be able to think about this as a solution. And then 100%, when you say, look, I'm sure it's not that bad, the message will be received from an emotional standpoint because the emotional brain is the only one that's on and listening. The words will be heard and they will be remembered. And so the mood will, that's what's going to permeate. So you're probably absolutely right. It's not as big of a deal as your teenager's making this out to be. And their brain is wired in such a way in that moment to only hear your invalidating remarks. And
Yeah.
that can be very painful down the line. And it can create a situation where your teenager doesn't want to come and talk to you about problems because every time I come talk to you, you don't even care. Well, that's not how you feel about it. You're trying to like bring them down to a normal level, but like let's do an assessment of mood. And if you need to ask a question, be like, all right, on a scale of 1 to 10, how upset are you about this right now in this moment? Or how much anxiety are you feeling about this right now in this moment? And if we're at like a 5 or higher, we need to regulate
Yeah.
and meet our needs before we can discuss anything logical. So, you know, definitely we have to assess the situation from our logical standpoint because likely in that situation you're not at a high level of emotion, and so if that's the case your logical brain is on, but understand that theirs is probably not on, so you got to meet the emotional needs first. And this, let's just circle back to the 3 and 4 year old situation, right? Something didn't go their way, the toy is broken, someone took their toy, they are so upset. right? Because they haven't learned fully to regulate their own emotions yet. So something small happens, boy, are the emotions really big. And this is that same situation. So looking at it from that perspective as a parent, what are you going to do to your 4-year-old who is freaking out because they don't have the right shoes or their shoes are muddy from yesterday and I want to wear those shoes and they're crying on the floor and they're just really upset? We need to meet that with tenderness, with some empathy, and look, it's not that big of a deal. We can clean off your shoes or whatever the solution is that you can come up with. But first we have to meet those emotional needs. And that's typically what good parents are doing. Is we're going to come, we're going to help pick you up off the floor. I know this is really a bad situation. I know I'm really sorry about your shoes. And that's the attitude we come at it to our teenager who comes in a panic, in a high level of emotion. And then we can come after we've calmed down, after needs are met, after we've had a bath or a cup of tea or some water or an ice pack or whatever works. Then we can come and say, okay, I want us to think about, because you came in the house and you said everything's terrible and I have no friends and nothing is
Yeah.
good. And I would like us to talk about how each of those things is maybe not as true as what you were saying.
Yeah.
Like maybe things went bad today, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But what actually is going right for you in your life, right?
Yeah. No, that's really, and really when we're talking about is, when you were saying when it starts to be global, yeah, because now we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about generalized. That's what the word generalized means. When we hear generalized anxiety disorder, when we hear generalized, like we're saying
Mm-hmm.
across all, like most or all areas of life, this is how it feels. And the moment they're saying that, that's how we know they started with the situation, we got to generalized. Let's
Yeah.
say we meet all the needs and we're still at generalized, and we note that and we meet their, we do our best to help them. This is happening every day, and now it's the end of 2 weeks and we are still in generalized even after regulated. Now we are talking
Mm,
about something that is, I mean, we should already at that point, if our kid has a therapist, be bringing it to the therapist like, hey, we've been hearing this
for
a few
sure.
times. But that is the point where we do make an appointment with our physician. We do ask,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this has been across most or all areas of life. It has seemed to be um like immovable by meeting their needs, or at least meeting their needs is not getting them above. Like that's really the kind of the litmus test. That's the question. And it really just helps us establish a baseline, because let's say this moment really is meaningful and really the, beginning of something. It's really just a plot point. It's just a moment. And one plot point a story does not make, right? Like that's not a
Right,
story.
right, right.
But if we're now getting a plot point almost every day across, a week or two, especially like 2 weeks, we might make the appointment at the end of 1 week for a week from now. If by the time that appointment was, we're still in this place, oh, that was more than where they were in their development cycle, as you said, where they were in their menstrual cycle, where they were in their that growth spurt. But like then that's
Mm-hmm.
more. That's more than a moment. That's more than a situation. More often than not, it's not going to go there. And that's how we just part, like stopping those things. Hey, as soon as it becomes generalized, then we meet our needs. And then when if they're able to come back, that is our litmus test for, is this big enough that I need to bring it somewhere? I can't even tell you the amount of times I've heard from parents, maybe I should record my kid to show you what their behavior is, because I don't actually think when I tell you how big it is that I'm accurately describing this. And I'm like, I hear you and I can imagine. Because I think for them, it feels, I mean, whether we're talking about undiagnosed ADHD, whether we're talking about, some types of PTSD, whether we're talking about going through growth spurt, whether we're talking about some sort of agent stage, whether we're talking about, yeah, recovering from a situational whatever, parents really do, they see sides of their kids that can scare them and they really worry them. And I'm like, no, I hear you and I hear it gets big. And really
Mm-hmm.
my take really comes at how can you as a parent approach this in a way of resource and support and love, because when the parent does that, now we also, again, it clarifies this symptomology, it clarifies what's happening. But if the parent unknowingly is re-triggering this kid over and over and over because the kid's going, my life is over. And the parent's like, how could you even say that? Listen, as a parent, you're not wrong. Just to be
Yeah.
clear, it's not that you're wrong. It's not that your logic isn't sound, and theirs is. It's that in that moment, they don't actually have access to logic, like you said. So us
Exactly.
coming at it with logic, it would be like we're at the circus and a clown hands us a noodle and says, build a house. And we're like, that's a noodle. That's the weirdest analogy my brain maybe has ever come up with. The point is, we would not take it seriously. We would not take the clown who's in a role of silliness, handling us a wet noodle and being serious about it. We wouldn't take it. We'd be like, okay, clown, you're silly. We wouldn't take him seriously. And if we're
Okay,
coming
clown.
back at this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 15-year-old with like, well, what do you mean that, like, if we're coming back at them with logic because we think that's going to solve the problem, that doesn't even make any sense. That's not actually what this kid needs. We can do that later, and we should do that later. That would be a helpful thing to do later. Maybe not, it's not that bad, and telling them about their experience, that's a whole other conversation. But really
Yes.
more, can you better describe to me what's going on? Because I'll be honest, I got a little lost in how to support you there. I don't really know what that looks like. Can you tell me more?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the generalized advice, that's really helpful though. Once it starts to get to everything is bad, everybody hates me, guess I'll go eat worms, that's definitely the time to meet the needs and shut it down. We also have to recognize several things, several other things are going on in this moment. One is the higher the dysregulation, the higher the cortisol. The cortisol plays a big role in mood, including depression specifically. It's, there's lots of things. Well, just to summarize that, we're also modeling for them interactions between others. We're not only modeling for them how we would like a partner in the future to respond to them, or pretty much anybody in their life, but specifically an intimate partner. We're modeling for them how would I want their partner to respond to them. Would I want them to come at them with, well, that's ridiculous. Why would you think that way? No, I would want them to come back with, hey, you seem really off. Are you okay? Like, that's what
Yeah.
I want them to say. I'm also modeling for them what they should accept from another person. So if another person is coming at them, no, you don't understand. This is my life. You don't get it. Would I want my kid to respond with either A, yes, it does. That doesn't make any sense. Or B, I totally hear you. Thank you for sharing your feelings with me. No, I'd probably want them to say, these feelings feel real big. I'm not actually sure what you're saying. I need to go for a walk. I'm going to take a break from this. I'm going to come back and see how you feel. And then we're going to move forward in this. That's how I'd want them to respond. So that's
Right.
also what I'm modeling. So I can go till I'm blue in the face down this road of how I responded was logical. It made sense. I think it's what they needed. And that argument is going to completely dissolve once I think about how do I want someone else to treat them? How do I want them to treat others in that moment? How do I want the dynamic in their relationships, their most important relationships to look? I have to model that, period.
Right. Right. And I think this comes back to this, like, an idea of balance. There's a balance of holding a boundary for yourself and modeling that for your kids, and a balance of support. Like, well, this is the amount of support I can offer you, and you don't have to necessarily say, well, I have 5 minutes of time that I can offer you as support. Sometimes literally that is what you have, but
Yeah.
you know, the point is, what you're saying is, you want to have a model for your children of, this is how you should support someone in a good relationship, and this is how you can support yourself. And really, when we support ourselves, we're better able to provide that support for other people that we love and that need us.
Oh,
And if
yeah.
we don't meet our own needs first, we cannot meet the needs of the people that, are
Yeah.
in the need of our support. And you know, it's the air mask analogy in the airplane, right? Put on your own mask before you help the
Yeah.
person next to you.
Yeah.
And that absolutely is the best amount of advice. It
Yeah.
really
Or
it's global. It works for all
I've
the
been
situations.
my kids' whole life, I've been working to get them to drink more water because dehydration has caused a lot of issues for them. And from a sensory perspective, they just really struggle drinking water. They don't want to drink water. It's not even that they want to drink something else, to be clear. They don't really like drink, they don't want to drink milk, juice, like they don't really want to drink anything. They just don't like drinking liquids. And it's caused all sorts of issues. And it's one of those things that eventually they had to just come to this place of like, this is just something I have
Just
to
have to
do.
do
How
it.
can we make it fun?
Yeah.
Sure, but like we just got to do it. I'm so
Yeah.
focused on this, and the real truth is, and one day my kid will probably listen to this and I'll admit it. I'm so focused on getting them to drink water, I'm not really modeling drinking water so much.
Ooh.
So joke's on me. Who's dehydrated at the end of the day? This person. So I do want to come back around though and just be clear. I think these are really great conversations. And when you're in the moment, first of all, these skills are not built in that moment. The skills are
Mhm.
built in reflection. They are built with your child, with yourself. Like, okay, what do I want to do? What could I do differently? Conflict is an opportunity to model apologies. I'm very clear that I generally have the opportunity to model an apology almost daily with my child. Does that mean I'm always apologizing for things? Not necessarily, but for the most, like I make a lot of mistakes as a parent. And sometimes I'm even like, hey, I just wanted to check in with you. I kind of felt this weird reaction, and maybe was it just me? Was there something I said, especially as a neurodivergent parent? Sometimes they're like, well, when you said this, I was like, hey, thanks for, like, I didn't realize how that sounded. I want to be clear. That's not how I feel. That's what the apology sounds like. I'm just clarifying, like to be
Mhm.
explicit so that their, you know, death and destruction filter doesn't run away with this thought of something silly that I
Yes.
said. I'm going to be
Yeah.
explicit and give it a narrative. I think it's helpful to just be clear where the lines are. The generalized part, when they start generalizing things, when the ripple gets so big that we're talking about their world and the whole universe and how it's about to blow up. Yeah, probably let's go meet some needs. Another really clear one is I will stay here to support you as long as I am resourced, meaning I am generally hydrated. I'm not hungry because I'm not going to support anybody while I'm hungry. I'm
Right.
generally hydrated. I'm not hungry. We don't have any like pressing thing. Like I'm here with you in this moment. And there is a hard line if their complaints and criticisms of the world start to become a weapon and I am now the target. So I think a really clear distinction is, and this can happen when we're angry, we can start to lob things at the people around us, right? We can start to kind of turn them into, I call an emotional trash can, and just start to like throw things in there. Nothing helpful is happening in that moment. And in fact, we're really just normalizing and allowing our kid to practice the habit of weaponizing their pain, and that's not helpful or kind to anybody. So a really hard line for
Mhm.
me, and again, what I would want it to be for my kid in any kind of conversation they have with anyone else is the moment it turns from, no, it was really bad, it was really unfair, it was the worst, to you're bad, you're unfair, you're the worst. Now that's shame, first of all. That's shame. They're turning it on me, and they're globalizing and naming me as a person. They are attacking my character as a person. Now I'm not like, okay, and then it really will be like, now you're just become like, now this isn't feeling good for me, I gotta go. So that's a really clear line too. So generalized stuff, meet needs. If it becomes like about you as a person, I can come back with, how dare you talk to me that way, and I might. And honestly, if you practice this with your child, generally they don't keep doing that. That's a behavior you can pretty much nip in the bud when they're young. And if you have someone in your home, if a child or teenager is in your care that wasn't there before and you didn't have the opportunity to set those standards, it is one that for the most part you can set and be done, because they're not really going to get what they want, which is that love and attention, even if it's negative attention, as long as they start attacking you. And really, that's a self boundary. You should never allow yourself,
Mhm.
no matter how angry you are at a person, to attack their character in anger. If they really are at, this way, if that's really true, probably a change in the relationship needs to be made. Maybe this isn't our
Yeah.
friend anymore or whatever. But that's a really clear line for me as well. I can be here with you as long as I have capacity to be here and I'm resourced and hear you. Once it starts to get globalized, let's meet needs. If I start to become a target and your pain becomes a weapon, no one is winning in that scenario. And
Yeah.
I've seen and observed so many parents allow their kids to attack them verbally, And the parents think, well, I know my kid doesn't really mean it and I don't really want, and I'm like, no, that is not the same as them being upset and you being there for them. Now we are normalizing and habituating targeted behavior. They will ruin every relation. They will blow up every relationship they ever have in their life until they learn that lesson. I'm not doing them any favors.
Yeah. Yeah. And um, I think in life, in relationships, in public settings with people, if if the issue cannot be fixed within 5 to 10 seconds, we don't need to bring it up. I would say probably the only exception to that is in a like a long term relationship. If there's like a repeated behavior that might take some time for someone to change, but it is something that you think they could probably address. Like, hey, when you tell me that I haven't taken out the trash, could you please do it in a less accusatory tone? This is the last time you
Yeah.
told me, hey, you still didn't take out the trash. Could you maybe come at me with like, hey, I still notice the trash is still here.
Yeah.
Or it's your turn for trash this week. Did you remember? Something like softer. Just be like a little softer. And those are the kind of things communicating in relationships that can be really healthy. But again, that might take longer than 5 to 10 seconds. but
Yeah.
but if we're attacking something about somebody that's a personality issue, that's a physical issue,
Yeah. A character trait.
that then no, like that's just a no. That's
Yeah.
always something that should be shut down. And if somebody is repeatedly picking out those type of things to pick, and this is something um that I've tried to emphasize to my kids, number one, don't be the type of person that looks at somebody and points out something that can't be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be that guy, and
Yeah.
don't tolerate that from somebody else. If somebody is picking on you because you have like a slightly larger forehead than somebody else, or if you have like something in your teeth, yeah, that's something you should point out to somebody because they can fix that real fast.
Well, especially when they're a friend, though, like they should
Yeah,
be a friend. Like there's
yeah.
an appropriate
But
level.
if you're talking about, boy, like you have an upturned nose, that's not like that. I can't fix my upturned nose in 5 to 10 seconds. And
Yeah.
so, what's your point of bringing that up? Is to make me feel bad about who I am, how I look as a person.
Yeah.
And so, if that's the goal, that's never going to be something that is a winning
Yeah.
relationship communication. But if I'm saying like, hey, when you said XYZ to me the other day, it hurt my feelings. Next time, could you say it a little more like this? And I think having those examples can be really helpful in relationships too. I mean,
Yeah.
not to brag, but my husband and I have been together for a very long time. And and that's how we model for our kids
Yeah.
communicating. You say, this was the problem and I felt this way. Next time, could we try something else?
Yeah.
And that's the way that you can communicate your needs without criticizing the other person. And it doesn't descend into criticism because I'm just pointing out, this is how I saw that situation. Could it go differently next time?
Yeah.
And that's a simple human to human ask. That is not me pointing out, you always do it this way.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I'm saying, when this one time happened, it went this way to my recollection. Could it go different? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I totally agree with you. And it's I mean, really, I think in general, character attacks are displaced resentment and frustration.
Oh
Like
yeah, for sure.
in general, if someone's attacking your character, there's something they are mad at something else, someone else, at themselves. Like that's not actually about you anymore. They're making it about you and it feels personal. But in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, generally, my brain isn't saying, I mean, maybe now, depending on the situation, my brain can say, this has nothing to do with me. But in the moment, you're like, usually just like confused and like whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Whoa, where did that come from?
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, these topics are so like they're so nuanced, you know. It's why I was really hoping to bring some clarity to like when to cut it off, when to, like, again, like meeting needs or putting the
Yeah.
stop sign up, or get sometimes it's not that they're attacking characters. Sometimes it's not that they're going global. We've just been at this now for like 20-30 minutes.
Yeah,
Nothing
maybe.
after that. I think that in general, down the road, like an hour from now, you're not going to be glad that you spent that time on this. So it's kind of like putting something out of its misery. It's like, in this
Yeah.
moment, I don't think you're going to actually feel better talking about this for longer.
Right.
And I don't necessarily say that out loud, but it's like, you know what, let's go ahead. And I just go ahead and do that anyway. So also just this amount of time, because in the past, if I have let it go and I'm thinking, wow, they just really need to keep talking about this, they really just need to let it out. Later, they're kind of bummed that now I don't have time. They don't even have time for, whether it's repair because there was some sort of thing between us, whether it's the comfort, the regulation, the need, like they don't have time for the things they want to do. And like this thing already took up so much brain space in your day. And as the adult in the situation, I won't allow this thing that's been hurting you or that's been causing you discomfort and pain to keep hurting you for another hour. That's not fair. That's not actually choice. It's taking your choice away on how you spend your time and energy. So I'm still going to put that up, because unless it's like a thing that's gone on for a long time and we were having a really intentional conversation that was started intentionally and we're seeing it through to the end, like this big friend problem that we're like, hey, I'd really like to bring this up. Do you have time now? And then we are starting this conversation there and we're like really trying to see it through and it might take 45 minutes. That's very different than the kid who comes home from school, melts to the floor. We're still crying about the same thing 20-30 minutes later. Like that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Like that was in
Yeah.
reaction. The other one was intention. And we really do need to get to the end, and maybe there will be tears, maybe whatever, but that's just very different. So to be clear, when I work with parents and they say things like, oh, it will go on for hours. And this is not an uncommon thing I hear. And when I tell
Mhm.
parents, you never have to do that ever again. And they're like, really? And I'm
Right.
like, okay, well, to be clear, it might take a little bit of time to come back from that. But
Hmm.
it is not fair to their body, their regular, like no one's learning anything. We can't learn or love through this. Then we can't, like, no, do that is not actually in their best interest. And most of the time, I mean, they're relieved. Like, no, it's going to take a little bit of time to restructure it, but we always can. We always can. And it always
Hmm.
starts with the parent drawing their own self boundaries and
Yeah.
then drawing boundaries with their kids. And boundaries doesn't mean borders on their expression. Boundaries doesn't mean we are control. It doesn't mean control. It means a realistic purview of, again, helping to be the authority figure in a situation that needs a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
well,
I
listen, I have
realized,
enjoyed this conversation
yeah,
so much.
I became very academic unexpectedly. But because I'm covering up my face, I also realized it's right near the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah,
Oh, yeah.
speaking
Yeah.
of, I
We're,
really have some needs I need to go meet. I'm gonna go do that. This
well,
has
you
been a
go
really
and do
great
that.
discussion. Yeah, it's I mean, we come on here to try to simplify things, and I hope that, in if nothing else, we can validate that it's not, if it was clear and the solution was, if the problem was clear and the solution was easy, you would have done it already. I trust that as a parent who loves their kid, you would have done it already. Or as a parent,
Yeah.
or as an adult who has a child in their life, if it was clear and it was easy, you would have done it already. So no, it's not that you're
Yeah.
missing something obvious.
No.
It's that it's a lot of little parts in a big complex picture.
Yeah.
And
If there was an instruction manual that had it all figured out, whoever wrote that would be a bajillionaire and we would all be benefiting from it because they
well,
had figured out the magical plan of parenting, but it
yeah,
doesn't exist.
yeah. Spoiler alert. Anyone who says they have figured it all out and here is the one plan that works,
Lying. They're
that
lying to
person is
you.
lying. Do not give them money. Even though
Don't
I
do it.
really like to give parenting strategies and, helpful validation and support and coaching and what one might call advice, I would never claim to have all the solutions to everything, because that doesn't
No,
exist. Again, if it was easy and it was simple and it was clear, we would have done it already.
exactly. Yep.
And you listening to things like this, you're supporting to better support a child in your life or in your inner child. Like, that's just being open to better, to understanding more and learning skills, that is the greatest gift you can give anyone, including yourself.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And on that note,
Until next time.
from our two human hearts to yours.